Hey, welcome in to the Late Night Gamecock Show. My name is Matt Anderson, and joining me as always is Alex Jones of thebigspur.com. Pretty exciting show tonight. We have former Gamecock men's basketball great Aaron Lucas joining us here in just a few minutes. He's actually been out watching one of his former players play a college basketball game tonight, so hyped to get Aaron in here. And we're going to talk a lot of basketball tonight on the show. A lot of basketball, obviously, when we have Aaron. And then we're going to talk just a little football and probably even less baseball. So with that being said, Alex, let's go ahead and get the show started and go ahead and roll the intro, and then we'll bring Aaron in here.
Welcome to the Late Night Gamecock Show from Chief Sports, South Carolina. Here are your hosts, Matt Anderson and Alex Jones of thebigspur.com.
Welcome in, everybody. As I mentioned on the top of the show, we have a special guest tonight. Aaron Lucas is joining us. How about Alex? You want to go ahead and bring Aaron in for everybody? So, Aaron, what's up, man? I see you're muted right now, but happy to have you on the show.
Glad to be here. I apologize. I'm moving around a lot, but I just left the game, so I'm trying to make sure I get in on time, and hopefully looking forward to having a good time with you guys.
Absolutely. Well, Aaron and I actually kind of go way back. Back in the day, I was a ball boy for the basketball team when he played there. So, my time with the Gamecocks started with Melvin Watson and Larry Davis and BJ Mackey, Ryan Stack, those guys. And then I remember when Aaron was getting recruited, because during the summertime he would come out there and play some, and it was always, this is the next great point guard for South Carolina. I know that Coach Fogler was super hyped to get Aaron into the fold, especially being a Columbia kid. So, Aaron, take us through your recruitment. How did you end up as a Gamecock? We'll start there, and then we'll kind of go forward.
I actually really just kind of always been a Gamecock fan. I grew up, I was, in Columbia, going to games with some good friends of mine as a young kid. I had a cousin that actually played football, so I'd actually attend a lot of football games. And just over time, I kind of got to a point where basketball started to become a reality for me. I didn't really understand the recruiting process per se, but I started getting a lot of mail, a lot of letters, started talking to a lot of coaches from different schools, mainly in the Southeast and some in the Northeast. But obviously team camp was very important for my recruiting process, because I was always around the coaches, got a chance to be around a lot of the players, a lot of the guys that I met. Oddly enough, my family being from Charleston, I watched Melvin Watson play a lot in high school. And so, it's really just kind of a natural matriculation, being in Columbia all the time. And of course, again, team camp really helped. Being a part of that atmosphere, and then of course the late night runs that Coach Fogler allowed me to be a part of really kind of made everything take off from there.
Yeah, was there a close second, or was it just going to be the Gamecocks once you got that offer?
My top three schools at that time was University of Miami and Syracuse. Obviously, Syracuse being in the Big East, that was an opportunity that, of course, a lot of people at that time wanted to be a part of. Miami also, I believe, was in the Big East at that time. And it just seemed like a good experience that potentially could happen going down there. And that was probably one of the first recruitment letters and information that I got. So I was really interested in Miami. And then other schools later on came, University of Virginia, Tennessee, got some contact from Connecticut. Obviously, Clemson was in the picture as well. South Carolina State went through. College of Charleston was an option, but Carolina at that time cut off for two big seasons, and obviously the SEC championship really kind of solidified it for me.
I got you. Yeah, because I mean, you look at the record books and you're all over it. Games played, minutes played, career assist. I think think you've actually had 7 steals in the game one time too, which is kind of a crazy
Did I?
statistic. I was looking through the record books, man. 7 steals in a game.
So see, and I used to get on because Chuck Idson was like our steals king at the time. But I used to joke all the time that because of the defense I would play on the ball, Chuck would get all the steals because of defensive pressure. So I didn't realize I had 7 steals in a game one time. That's glad you helped me with that. I feel like I didn't play any defense other than on ball defense.
Well, I mean, you were really good at that, and obviously being a facilitator. I mean, you had I'm going back. I'm just thinking about it being back, around the team. Then, obviously it was tough. Your freshman year, BJ's senior year. I felt like just watching it and being around the team. BJ was pretty much triple teamed every game, and he still averaged like 18. But it was just a tough year. So, what was that year like for you, being a freshman, coming in with all the success the Gamecocks had previously, and then an 8-21 year, and a guy whose jersey's retired, all-time leading scorer, leading the charge.
Right. It was a unique experience from the standpoint of looking back on it. I wasn't ready as a true freshman to play in a conference like the SEC and the physicality and really not really playing with any big men. My post guy in high school was 6'2", and I played the 4 some. I played a lot of different positions. My only real experience playing against guys that were on a day-to-day basis, 6'5", 6'6", 6'8", 6'9", is when I went to Oak Hill. I was there for the summer of '97. I actually came back to Columbia my senior year, but I was at Oak Hill Academy the summer of '97 before my senior year, and that was also a possibility of staying at Oak Hill, which I think playing, if I would have stayed there, it would have helped me adjust to playing against size. And so trying to figure that part out, the adjustment to the size, the physicality, the dynamic of it was about BJ and trying to get him NBA ready as a point guard. But if you know BJ, there's nothing about point guard and BJ Mackey. So, for a while during that year, it was just a major adjustment of learning the point guard position because he and I both kind of were scorers in high school. And of course, he exceeded that at the college level. And so we were just trying to figure out that balance of who is actually the point guard, because there were many occasions I bring the ball up the court and then he initiate the offense once I got it across half court, or vice versa. He'd bring it up the court, give the ball to me, and I'd eventually have to get the ball back to him. So I think that just the dynamics of the team that year was really a major adjustment for all of us. And, we wanted to send those seniors out because we had some really good seniors. It was a fun time, but we had some guys that been through some battles that had some success, and, we truly wanted to send them out on a high note. But the chemistry, the dynamics it was a major adjustment. And, I learned a lot that year. I can say that much.
Yeah, I mean, I think that you're the perfect guest to have on right now because obviously you played overseas professionally for a long time, had a lot of success there. You won a slam dunk championship as well, I read online.
Yeah.
So that's pretty awesome.
I think a lot of people did not see probably the full dynamics of what I think I brought to the game from my high school days because I was more of a slasher. We ran a lot of alley-oop plays for me in high school. I was really athletic. And once I got to Carolina, I was really trying to form into this traditional point guard. So once I got overseas, I kind of got the best of both worlds put together. So I was a slasher, I was a scorer. But the things that I learned from Coach Fogler, a lot of mentorship from Melvin Watson, guys like Marcus Saxon playing during the summertime, learning how to be a point guard and lead. All of that came together overseas. So, dunking was my thing my first couple of years when I was in Europe, and that's kind of what I was known for early in my career.
See, that's wild to me. Go ahead, Alex. You had a question for Aaron.
Yeah, when you kind of look back, kind of more broader question. When you look back at your time at South Carolina, how would you describe the impact? Obviously being a local guy, staying at South Carolina, what kind of impact does South Carolina have on you in your time with the Gamecocks?
Well, I think if you look at the opportunities that I was able to have after playing. That's really how I value your experience, and that came into play. My mother and my father and my family really kind of stressed some of that as well. Is what's going to have to happen after you stop playing, and I've had the honor of being an adjunct professor, working in the athletic side of things with the Gamecock Club, being an assistant director. I've done a number of different things and had a number of different opportunities come my way after graduating and coming back to Columbia from Europe. So, it's been a blessing, and I can't thank the university for the many things that they were able to help me with and grow as a young man. And so, I'm forever grateful, forever to be. But you know, I think it could have happened a lot of different places, but I'm certainly happy that it happened in Columbia.
Yeah, and like right now, let's switch over to like where the program is now. And I know that you still pay close attention. And for those of you who don't know, Aaron's coached at the high school level on the men's and the women's side. He does cross country as well right now at Lower Richland, right, Aaron?
That's right.
Yeah, so he's LR all day long. So, but right now it's such a different dynamic than when you came up. I mean, there were very few players people were getting paid, but they weren't getting paid like they're getting paid now.
Right.
Getting paid might be like, you get free drinks when you go to 5 Points, you get free burgers when you go around town, somebody might, hook you up with groceries. I don't know, like little things like that. But
an extra patty melt at the Russell House.
Yeah, exactly. But like now the game's so different that you have to come in as a freshman or an upperclassman and you're basically melding with a new team. And, last year the Gamecocks had a lot of success in the transfer portal, getting a point guard like Talon Cooper. I said all season last year, Talon was like the straw that stirred the drink. And you could just tell when he came off the court how discombobulated the offense got, even getting the ball across half court when other teams pressed. And this year, you don't really have a true point guard. Do you think that's like the biggest thing this team's lacking? Or just, on the men's side, we'll start there. Just like, give us your thoughts on where things are and what they can do to fix it.
Well, I think in this new era of transfers and, the portal, it makes it difficult to find chemistry, and it's difficult to find guys that naturally have leadership qualities. I mean, I think, we can look back on Talon Cooper's time at South Carolina and say he was more than a steady hand. He was the leader of that team, and people follow him. So I think about guys like a Melvin Watson, who didn't necessarily score a lot of points, didn't do a lot of statistical things from that standpoint, but he ran the show. You knew he had command of the team. Guys like Sindarius Thornwell, who had command of the team. Guys like Trey Kelly, who had command of the team. And one, now that I think about it, comes to mind is Mike Boynton in his senior year.
Oh, yeah.
Who, if you go in the record books, you don't see a lot of stats for Mike Boynton, but for him to lead a team to the NCAA tournament his senior year just shows the quality and the importance of having a strong leader. And that doesn't always show up in the stat book. So I think this team is kind of like my freshman year team, where there's so many different dynamics and so many different people. And it's really difficult each year to try to develop team chemistry and maintain culture when guys are so transient now. And so I think they're seeing some of that right now, but that's just the nature of where we are now in college basketball.
Yeah, I look at this team and the close losses, like those. The fans can get as upset as they want, but I promise you, those 15 guys in the locker room, those coaching staff, like they're taking the losses way harder than you are. They're not trying to turn the ball over. It's just sometimes that happens. My thought process on this, Aaron, I want to get your take, is like right now, I feel like this team has individual athleticism and individual talent, but for the roles that these players are having to partake in each game, it's almost like square peg round hole. Like,
Right.
do you really want Morris initiating the offense? You probably don't, but he's got to do it because you can't throw your offense out the window. Like you got to continue to run it, and hopefully that they get better in time. They've had their chances, but for the trajectory of the program, I think you got to keep doing what you're doing and say this is our system, and you got to figure it out and get better with reps.
Well, I mean, I'm learning that as a coach now, being on both boys and girls side. There's two different philosophies that come to mind. I mean, there's one where if you feel you have a strong system, then you certainly have to recruit players that fit what you're trying to do. And on the flip side to that, I think a lot of coaches are learning that thin line and that balance of tailoring the system around what you have or what you end up bringing in. And of course, you really don't know how everything plays out. You think you might have, a particular player that fits your system, but how does he mesh with everything with the other pieces? And so do you modify the system to fit what this new mesh is, or do you continue to, just try to make it work? And again, I can go back to my transition from Coach Fogler to Dave Odom. Two different systems, two different styles. I think I thrived a little bit more in Dave Odom's style of play, but I learned so much more basketball, just the concepts, the X's and O's, and the strategic part of it under Coach Fogler.
Yeah. Go ahead, Alex.
Yeah, I just wanted to get your thoughts on, what you think of the job Coach Paris has done since he's been at South Carolina. Obviously, put together a really good team last year, and Coach, I mean, you could see the in-game, decisions and coaching that he was making in last year, and I mean, it was incredible. And this year, just things, as we both mentioned here, just things haven't quite gone right for them this year. Just overall, what are your thoughts on Coach Paris?
Well, again, I think it's hard to make any type of call on what's good or what's bad. We're only in year 3, I believe. So I think once you get to 5 and you start seeing different cycles and waves, you get a better understanding of what consistency looks like. And in full respect to the coaching profession, you're going to have ebbs and flows. And there's going to be seasons where everything is going right, and then there are going to be seasons where you're trying to do everything right, but certain things just don't happen the way you want it to happen. So I think he's doing a really good job of kind of building a foundation in a culture. So he's slowly kind of making that happen. But in this fast-paced society, we want things to turn around and increase every year, and that's just not the reality of it. You literally have to continue to build a foundation and establish your culture. You can't do that in 2 to 3 years.
I think that's the tough part, because it's like a Nick Pringle from the system that he came from at Alabama. It's completely different. It's completely different, and now it's almost. I'm struggling for words, because how do you make that work? Okay, now he's going to be back to the basket guy, and he's shown he can do it, but he's not super comfortable with it. But who else is going to do it, right? You got to have somebody. I think that sometimes Colin tries to do everything, and I think that's what a winner should try to do. A winner should try and help people and score when you do score, rebound, pass the ball. I mean, I think he has a bright future. I think the Arden Conyers is coming along very nicely. I think his future looks good, and I agree with you. After 3 years, you really can't say one way or another. All I know is he does have an SEC Coach of the Year award in his office, and they don't hand those out. You got to go earn those things. So I think that it's just because the turnover is what kills people. But at the same time, the players know what they're supposed to do. But has there ever been a time when in your playing days and your coaching days when you've seen, okay, this is just in my head now. I can't get out of my head. I can't turn the ball over. I got to catch it. You just move too fast. You move too slow. Is that something that can be coached out, or is that something that's just a function of who you are right now for whatever reason?
I think it really goes down, and again, I go back to a lot of things are based on understanding what you're doing, right? So turnovers come from trying to make plays. And in the game, and of course I've learned this over time, there's really no scenario that you either can't create or that you haven't seen if you played enough basketball. And so if you've seen the scenarios and you can log those in your mind, and if you can create scenarios, you can limit your turnovers. And I think a lot of young people, and of course it's natural because you haven't had a lot of experience, is you play the game as if it's a blank slate every time you touch the ball. And the really, really good players create scenarios that they want to happen because they know the outcomes. And so, that's the learning, the teaching part of the game that, I'm understanding more now as a coach, because let's just be honest, I was a turnover, machine my first couple of years. Because I was trying to create plays, but not understand the dynamics of what I was actually trying to do. And so, you think it's one thing, but then you look at it on film and you watch it and you're just like, I don't know what I saw right there and how fast the moving parts are. So I think that goes to the coaching and the teaching philosophy that you have, is create scenarios where success is a higher percentage of the outcome than y'all just go out there and play. We want a ball screen, but what am I looking for off the ball screen? So it's those type of things that you have to continue to embed. But again, with a transient population every year, you got to reteach that every year, and reteaching doesn't help you build culture at all.
Yeah, I've made the analogy, and being in high school, coach as you are, and you've been seeing it. Like sometimes I feel like this team is, especially in the SEC this year. The SEC is just a tough conference. It's probably the best conference I've seen in a very long time. Maybe some of those Big 12 conferences, in mid 2000s, ACC in a few years. But like sometimes it almost looks like, and I think this is what you're talking about. So let me know if I'm off base. But sometimes it seems like the JV is playing against the varsity team. Like for the JV, you see the potential and you see what they're trying to do, and they can go out there. And when I played high school basketball, I could give varsity buckets sometimes, but like we weren't going to win unless we played perfectly, and they messed up a little bit. And it was like maybe 5 out of 25 games, and even then, it was like, all right, it's 11-10 or 21-19, something like that. And it seems like that's just that margin of error that people don't realize exists when you have to play perfect against this competition.
Well, again, and that's a great term to use, margin of error. And margin of error comes from creating scenarios. So if you look at the Alabamas, what they're going to do. You can scout it. It doesn't matter. But within knowing what they want to do, they know everything that you're trying to counter. And they're already prepared for it because they work on it so much. And you see a lot of their core guys are still there. And that's why they have that success. But, again, when it's so free flowing and you're bringing in new people that have to understand your concepts in a matter of 6 to 7 months.
Yeah.
That becomes very challenging to get old habits. So think about your grad transfers who have maybe played in 2 or 3 different systems, or have played in one system for 4 years, and now you're trying to teach them a whole new philosophy and concept in a matter of months.
And so that's why I think a lot of these coaches are hanging it up, man. They're just like, this sucks. It is. Well, I know that we said we'd only keep you about 30 minutes, but if you got some time, I would like to touch on the women's program a little bit. You got a little bit more time for us?
Yeah.
Yeah. So, we talk about building a culture in a program, and obviously Don Staley has done that in spades at the University of South Carolina. I mean, in my mind, it's, Tennessee in the 80s and 90s. It's UConn in the 2000s to, 2015-ish, basically until Don got things rolling. And since then, I mean, you can pretty much count on South Carolina making the Final Four, making a national championship appearance, 40-0, 38-0 ended up being. How can the men recreate what the women have done, in your opinion? And, what makes that women program so special?
Well, I think for everybody who is a supporter of the women's program right now, you can't dismiss the first 7 years. Dawn has been there for 17, I believe now, something like that. Yeah. I was there with the Gamecock club when she first got there. And I remember, on lunch break sometimes going and play and pick up with the girls and just getting to meet them and kind of seeing where the program was at that time. And, having an opportunity to be around Dawn and kind of see if you see her in her early time and just trying to figure things out to the point to where she is now, that took a lot of time. And people were patient with her. They could see what was developing. And so it was just a matter of giving her the space to create and have the freedom to build what she envisioned. And I think now, again, if you can't build that within 2 or 3 years, people are ready to make changes. And you got to get the lightning in the bottle right now. And if you get the lightning in the bottle, then people will give you time. But, I think Dawn has done a wonderful job of just bringing her vision of what she did at Temple, of what she did as a player at Virginia, with Charlotte, with the Olympic team. So, you could see what she was capable of doing. And now that it's materialized, it took 17 years for that to start to make its way. So, I'm very excited for them. I'm very happy for her and her staff. And for the players, having as many South Carolina players on the team that are contributing and being a part of it. It's amazing to see, to witness, to know some of those players, to work and train with some of them. It's just a phenomenal time on the women's side. And I think if we're patient enough on the men's side, same thing with football and all the other sports. Ray Tanner, it took 20-something years.
Yeah.
For him to get to that point where we're winning back-to-back national championships. So, it's just a matter of buying into the building process.
Yeah, I think you're exactly right. Because I think about this too. South Carolina traditionally has been a baseball program. Yeah, you've had the up years in men's basketball. You've had the up years in football, but South Carolina's prided itself on its baseball, but what I've loved to see is that enthusiasm spill over to the women's games. I don't know if I know you've seen it, Aaron and Alex, you've covered a lot of these games, but that's a full capacity arena pretty much every time they play. They're going to have Connecticut here on Sunday night. And 2 weeks ago, I looked at tickets and the cheapest ticket in the arena was $137.
Yeah, I'll be watching on TV.
Yeah. Yeah. But I think that's just what, if people are patient and they build it, then you will get the support. I think back, I know you played at Frank McGuire Arena. Did you ever play in Colonial Life? Was that your last year at Colonial?
Yeah. So I was the last class to play in Frank.
Yeah. So sometimes I wonder, should they just renovated Frank? And I loved that atmosphere. I thought it was great. It was 13,000, 12,000 people, but when there were big games, it filled up. And they still do that at Colonial Life Arena. The women fill it up all the time. The men filled it up last year. But just finding a way to support this team. And I tell people all the time, how many times did you play at South Carolina when maybe there's 2,000 people in the arena?
Me?
Yeah, you.
It wasn't that often, actually.
But that's what I'm saying.
The way the Frank was set up, even with 7,000 on a Wednesday night, it felt like it was a full arena. The way the Colonial was built, it wasn't necessarily for basketball because we weren't in a position to have that kind of cachet. It was a concert arena. It was for a number of different things other than basketball. And so for Dawn and her program to help build it, and I think, when you're able to do that and you have a legendary player like Asia Wilson come in and get a statue and you can start transitioning that building into an arena, like a legit arena, it'll get back to the times where Devin Downey and Zan Frederick are playing Kentucky and you got a packed house and things will go well. It's just a matter of, like I said before, people just buying into the building process and embracing it. But it's hard sometimes. I get it.
Yeah. Yeah, and I think y'all talk about Colonial Life Arena, and last year you think about some of those main games. You think about the Tennessee game where SEC championship was on the line, and number one seed was on the line. That place was filled up, and it was an awesome atmosphere. There's a lot of good atmosphere this year. Clemson game, and I think Aaron, you're right. It's just a patience thing. I think we've seen under Lamont Paris so far what he did at Chattanooga. He built that program. They took strides in year one. Here he's mentioned how impressed he was with how that team took strides in year one. Year two, obviously, everything they got it going, went to the NCAA tournament. I think it's just, it feels like Lamont Paris, he'll get this thing right for South Carolina. We've seen what he can do to build programs, and I agree.
Yeah. And Aaron, really quick, you saw Asia Wilson's comments about Joyce the other day, right? You see what she said?
No, I didn't.
She said that she's a few years away from being the best player in the world.
Unfortunately, I've had to see Joyce for the last 2 years, so I can't disagree with that at all. I truly don't even know that she knows her full potential. She's a great young woman who is given a lot to South Carolina basketball already. She is a workhorse. She wants to get better. But I truly don't even know if she knows her ceiling. For basketball minds and people that watch her play, there's so much to work with, right? When you're talking about molding a player, and I saw that in high school, and I was curious to know how Dawn would utilize her, but we're only seeing the beginning. And to play against it and try to coach against it, there's so much more coming that people will be excited about.
You can see, every game she gets better and better. And I think it was just adjusting to the college game, but you saw it in non-conference play and into conference play. She just continues to get better and better. I mean, she's going to be a force for the rest of her time at Carolina. She's got. I mean, it's incredible what she's done so far.
Yeah, she has an opportunity to be the next one. I think Asia is the one. And obviously we can't dismiss or overlook or overshadow what Aaliyah Boston did during her time, which think about the irony of that. Yeah. Asia was great. And then it was Aaliyah's moment. And not that you forgot about Asia, but it was Aaliyah's moment. And that fast, we're talking about Joyce Edwards almost as if Aaliyah's time never existed. And it's a weird thing. It's a good thing, but there have been some Tiffany Mitchell. I mean, I can go down the line of how many amazing players that have played already under Dawn's tutelage. And Joyce is certainly going to be the next name that we'll talk about over the next couple of years. And we don't know. I don't know. Again, I've seen it. I'm excited of her potential because she could be really special. But Asia Wilson is the one.
Yeah, Asia is, and she just got that signature shoe deal. That shoe's pretty awesome, man. And we're so happy for her. All the flowers she received this past weekend, well deserved. And the way that she represents the University of South Carolina. Right. Every step of the way. And you see all of Dawn's girls doing that. And look, I think that overall, the former athletes like yourself, I mean, Brandon Wallace is always talking the Gamecocks up. Carlos will talk about them every once in a while. Just the more that, the fans can see you guys still invested, it really does matter. So we appreciate everything that you do for the university and everything you have done. And Aaron, you're welcome back on this show anytime you want to come. I'll hit you up and I'll try and catch some of your games at Lower Richland here coming up soon. I go to Columbia a good bit, so I'll text you and we'll figure out when you got like a Friday night game or something. I'll try and swing by.
Okay. Well, we're on the tail end of it. We're at Lakewood Friday evening, and then our last home game is Tuesday. And then the playoffs will start the following week. So hopefully we'll be in position to make a long run so that you can come check us out.
Yeah, I want to come to a playoff game for sure. For sure. Well, Aaron, come back anytime you want and hit me up anytime. Thank you for your time tonight, man. We really appreciate you.
Hey guys, I appreciate it. I love what y'all are doing. If I can help in any way, get any other guys involved, I'd love to do that. Keep doing what you're doing to represent the university, and I appreciate you thinking about me and having me on. So all I can say is forever to thee, go Gamecocks, go Diamonds, and I will see you soon.
All right, Aaron. We'll
Thank you,
talk to
Aaron.
you.
All right.
See ya. Oh, well, Alex, I thought that was great to have
Yeah.
a former player that had been in some tough situations at Carolina and still, found a way to have so much success, and both on the court and everything that Aaron's doing in the Columbia community can't be overstated. Just a class A human being that's helping to mold and shape future generations of South Carolina high school kids, and still working with them. But let's go and take a break, Alex. We'll take a short one, and then we're going to come back, talk a little bit of football, not much, and then just a couple baseball notes, and then we'll be right back.
Mike here for one of the better dining options in the capital city. When I first moved there, I asked people around the radio station, where are the best wings? Well, the consensus was D's Wings. That was then. Today, they still have the best wings, but it's so much more. Now in their new location at 415 Meeting Street in West Columbia, yeah, they get voted the best wings on a routine basis. Yes, they get voted the best sports bar on a routine basis, but they're not just about wings, and really, they're not just a sports bar. It is a family-run local restaurant and bar with 20 TVs and 25 beers on tap. And how about these daily specials? Every Monday night at D's, you've got 75-cent wings from 4 until closing. Tacos on Tuesday. Then on Wednesday, 18 wings and a pitcher of beer for $29. You've also got ribs and oyster bucket specials on Thursday. And no matter how big the party is, 20 or more, no problem. Just call ahead of time and they'll take terrific care of you. They'll do takeout as well. And guess what? A human will answer the phone and take the order. Billy and his staff do an outstanding job. Check out D's 415 Meeting Street in West Columbia.
Well, I think we should start with baseball. I'm going to make a quick announcement. What is it? The 11th, I believe. Let me see. We're going to have John Whittle on the show. So really excited to have John come in. I want to give you all the actual date. I need to go to my text messages. So February 11th. We're going to have John Whittle come on and give what he does every year. John comes on the show and breaks down everything Gamecock baseball wise. He's going to talk about, projecting the players, projecting the season. I told John that, next week, that episode is going to be dedicated to him. He can talk for as long as he wants. If y'all have questions, John's always great about answering questions in the chat box. So be on the lookout for John Whittle, the Big Spur, to talk baseball next week on February 11th at 8 p.m. So happy to have John. Always great to see the big guy. Quick baseball note. As always, if you're not watching or at least catching up with the Inside the Gamecock shows that are happening daily, you have the morning show with Jamie Bradford, and then JC and Phil run the Inside the Gamecocks, the show. So you have 10 a.m. to 2 p.m. coverage Monday through Friday. Today, actually, I believe it was today, Jamie had head coach Paul Maneri on the show, and he came on in the 11 o'clock hour. I watched and listened to it. I think the biggest thing for me in that interview is just how candid he is. He's very much going to tell you the truth. He's going to tell you how he feels. He's going to be honest. I mean, he was talking about that Dylan Eskew is going to be the Friday night guy. Matthew Becker is going to be the Saturday night guy starting out. And then, Sunday, they're going to have a competition these next couple inter-squad games. And then he talked about different position players that are going to play. He even talked about backup and third string catchers. So, he's a straight shooter. And I really respect that, because there's no sunshine and roses. There's no, we're going to keep working on that. We're going to get better. I mean, he's going to be disappointed. So go check out that show. And we're going to have a ton of questions for John, because me personally, just listening to that interview today with Jamie Bradford and head coach Paul Maneri was very eye-opening and enlightening. So make sure that you are subscribed to the Chief Sports Network on YouTube. You can find the Chief Sports Network app as well. So many shows now, including this very show that you're watching right now. So that was a big one for Jamie to get on the air, and it was great for him for Coach Maneri to give Jamie me his time this close to the season. You really don't see a lot of head coaches willing to do that.
Yeah, I mean, it was a ton of good information in there, and you mentioned just kind of the honesty you get from Paul Maneri. I mean, it's straightforward, and it was a great interview. And obviously, you mentioned the starting pitching rotation stuff that was mentioned today. I think that was maybe a little bit of surprise with I was on the show yesterday with JB and talking about kind of the game one start, and I think we both kind of said we thought maybe Eli Jersenbeck would get the game one, but it doesn't seem that's going to be the case. And, we'll see, maybe that's a game three situation. But, I mean, with the whole interview, I thought it was really good. And I think it's just, you kind of hear that in Maneri in his introductory press conference and with the media day press conference. Like, it's straightforward and he'll tell you like it is. And I think, sometimes it's one of those where like he wants the players to kind of hear some of that stuff and maybe help motivate some if they need it. Yeah,
I agree. So moving on, today was a National Signing Day, or late National Signing Day for high school football. It's kind of funny to me, Alex, because I remember sweating Jadeveon Clowney and if he was going to be a Gamecock or not up until Valentine's Day. Now not only did nobody sign with South Carolina today, pretty much the bulk of the recruiting class is already on campus and enrolled at South Carolina and going to go through spring practice. I mean, it's kind of weird to talk about these guys as class of 2025 recruits because they all graduated in 24 and they're football players at the University of South Carolina now.
Yeah, I mean, South Carolina didn't have anything today. I mean, it's so weird because you think back to 5 years ago, really, and in February was kind of the thing, and still had a lot of recruits, a lot of decisions happening that day, and still in around the country there were a few decisions today from some recruits, but it's really all of it gets done in that December period, and they've been looking forward to this 2026 class for a long time now.
Yeah, and like I tell you guys all the time, guys and gals, recruiting for the 2026 class is just picking up at this point. Mm-hmm. I mean, if you're not a member of the Big Spur, go ahead and join. I mean, Hale and Alex have been all over this 26 class, the 27 class. It's crazy how many articles and content, how much content y'all are pumping out. And after the show with John next week, we'll probably set the board for 2026. And we'll start talking about official visits, unofficial visits, that sort of thing, and trying to, start putting the puzzle pieces together of what this class might look like. But I think some of the bigger news that popped this past week is 24/7 Sports updated their transfer portal rankings. So, they updated the actual list of players and then the team rankings. And, looking at it, Alex, I think Gamecocks brought in 13 transfers. And, they lost a number of players as well. But you looking at the transfer ranks, I mean, it seems like they upgraded at virtually every position that they took a kid.
Yeah, I think so. I mean, I think the biggest take right now, the one right now that I think stands out is Rasul Faison, the running back from Utah State. I mean, he was already highly ranked and he jumped some spots up to 47. He went from a 99 to, I think maybe one of the more underrated recruits in this transfer portal class is Jalen Brown, the edge from Missouri. I mean, he was a guy who Missouri, we've talked about here a lot, that Missouri didn't want to lose that guy. And he has a lot of potential. And I think he's going to be somebody to watch out for. And, one of those last guys, Brandon Cisse, he saw his rankings go up a little bit. But, there's a lot of, when you look at this class, there's a lot of potential starters for next year. There's also some guys, that you can see that could be really good depth on this team. So, I thought so far, and really not so far. I mean, this class has been, transfer portal class has been a big, big get for South Carolina.
Yeah, then the transfer portal class kind of started slow. You saw other teams taking players. You saw big name guys going off the board. But as Alex and I reminded you, there were still weeks and weeks and weeks of time for players to enter the portal. And, South Carolina is very, very selective with the kids that they take from the portal. Like you said, I think a number of these guys could be starters. But, there's all this talk about wide receivers. And look, for better or for worse, we're going to find out. But, it wasn't necessarily a situation where South Carolina could not afford certain players. It was never an affordability. It was, is this the best use of NIL money? Because, they could have spent, $10 million in the portal, and I'm not even being facetious, got 6 players, and that would have been it. The Gamecocks found a way to get 13.
Yeah, that look at wide receiver is going to be interesting because obviously they got the 6 freshmen coming in that I think they're going to look to see in the spring how many of those guys are going to be ready to go with the returners. We saw what Nick Harvard did middle to end of the season. I mean, he was looking like he was coming into form and really improving. Mazio Bennett shined as a freshman, had his moments, and then Jared Brown's coming back. You got Dre Jacobs coming back. So the wide receiver room, is loaded right now, and maybe a little bit from from a freshman side having 6 guys. Just want to see from them how much of those guys are going to be ready to go, and then maybe if they find the right one in the portal, in the spring portal, maybe they bring in another one there. I think the one position that everybody's going to be kind of watching in that spring portal is defensive tackle. I think they could stand to bring in one more in that period. Just you always need depth in the trenches, especially in the SEC, and defensive tackle is one that you could look at to see if they find the right one because of what they're losing. Brought in some really good guys. Gabriel Brownlow-Dendy, I think is going to be really good. Guy that was at Texas A&M who maybe just had some guys in front of him, but a high-profile recruit when he went into Texas A&M, and it sounds like he's off to a pretty good start at South Carolina right now. So he's one to watch out for. But I think those are the 2 spots when we get to that spring portal window that you'll see the South kind of find the right person to add to those rooms.
Yeah, and I think that at least the last 2 years, and I might even go back the last 3 years, but definitely the last 2. I think between the high school recruiting class and the transfer portal class, the Gamecocks have improved their roster both years. And I think in big ways. And I've always said that the transfer portal was I think it could be the great equalizer for a team like South Carolina, where you're still going to get your handful of really good players. But if you get, JC talks about it all the time, and I want to give him some credit here, but like half your recruiting class is going to bust. Half your class is going to bust every year. If you can get 75% hit rate, I mean, that's elite. And being able to, and I don't even care how this comes out because it's just the truth. But now that players are getting paid and this is becoming something more of like a professional league, to have the ability to churn depth pieces into rotational pieces is huge. So, when you look at the players that left South Carolina, we wish them all the best and success in the world. But, when players leave a school, it's because they see the writings on the wall. Now, you got to go hit on your transfers. And I think South Carolina has done a really good job hitting. And I think that they did again this year. But, we'll just have to see once the season starts. And, Alex and I are going to hear a lot, and we're going to share that with you. We're going to hear about workouts. We're going to hear about spring ball. We're going to see how the depth chart is shaking out. We'll hear more in the summertime, when we're around the program in the summer. And, we'll start shaping this next football season, which we talk about 365 days a year now. But, just trying to kind of close out the show. Crazy that, National Signing Day in February is not a big deal anymore. And like we said, kudos to the Gamecocks for getting their class signed and pretty much enrolled. Baseball's coming, y'all. February 14th, opening day. Like we said, we'll have John on 3 days before opening day, so make sure you get all of your questions in. And basketball, celebrate the women. Women have a big game against UConn coming up this weekend.
Yep.
And, stick with the men. They still need your support. It's still great to go to Colonial Life Arena on a Saturday and watch basketball, whether it's the men or the women, on Saturday or Sunday. Get out there and support them. And, you never know what can happen. They still have some opportunities left. I was actually looking at Aaron's senior year. I think it was a senior year. Maybe it was his junior year. But, they lost like 8 games in a row, and they ended up winning 3 out of their last 6 and made some noise in the conference tournament. So you just never know which way the ball is going to bounce. And the ball has bounced against South Carolina so much that, there's still an opportunity. You saw Kentucky just get pretty much blown out by Ole Miss. You saw Tennessee get blown out by Florida. You saw Tennessee come back and blow Florida out. You just never know what's going to happen in this basketball season.
Yeah, the Kentucky game's going to be interesting this weekend. You mentioned kind of their struggles here recently. I think they've lost 4 or 5 recently, and that game against Ole Miss, the final score is really closer than that game was. Ole Miss controlled that game and more than controlled. Like, they dominated that game. And then last weekend, Calipari and Arkansas went into Rupp Arena and found a way to walk out of there with a win. So that's going to be an interesting game this weekend that it's going to be fun to watch. And you mentioned with this men's team, it feels like they're really close. we've seen how close they've been in some of these games. Obviously, Lamont Paris and the staff and the team, they don't take moral victories, but it just feels like if they can clean up some of those little things, some of those turnovers, they're going to find a way to get some success here at the end. There's some chances here with some home games, so it's going to be interesting to see. And then obviously you mentioned the women's team, like they just continue to roll, and that's a big one this weekend with UConn, so it's going to be fun to watch.
Absolutely. Well, we are going to get out of here tonight, y'all. Thank you so much to everybody that watches, listens to the show, for supporting us. When you spend your time with us, you're giving us the most valuable thing you have, which is your time. So we appreciate it. We love doing this show. We're here for you. If you have any questions, Alex's Twitter's on there. My Twitter's on there. You can reach out to us directly via DMs. You can find us on the Big Spur. We're both staff members there. You can send us private messages. You can ask questions on the board. So we're always around. So thank y'all so much. And a big thank you to Aaron Lucas for coming on the show tonight. I think that, what he said was very illuminating, talking about his past as a Gamecock athlete and what he's seen as a coach and what he's seen in the game now. And sometimes you just need, for lack of a better word, a point guard's set of eyes on things and, some realism to come back. And I think that Aaron was very real and very honest in his takes. So we'll make sure to have Aaron back on soon. If you're in the Columbia area, make sure you're supporting Lower Richland and that women's team that Aaron has, and hopefully they'll bring home a state championship this year. So we appreciate all of y'all. Have a great evening, and we will talk soon.